Well, they've truly outdone themselves this time. Trump just can't stop winning, and after his recent $15 million settlement with ABC, Abby Phillip decided to discuss what the president-elect's strategy might be here, and the panel gave all sorts of over-the-top arguments on what the future holds for them. But then Scott Jennings stepped in and shut every single argument down with his trademark common sense and sharp wit and logic. Today we're covering it all, and you won't believe how a single voice of reason managed to get the conversation back to reality. And as always, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
There was a big commotion when he appointed Brendan Carr, longtime SEC lawyer, to be the head of the SEC, that Donald Trump was going to take some sort of, regulatory action against media companies. But the reality is that's actually very hard to do. Yanking broadcast license, trying to pressure FCC commissioners to do that is very hard to do. What's easy to do, Abby, is to bully media companies, is to make their life living hell. And when you sue them for defamation, you're not just robbing them of their time and energy, you're also robbing them of legal costs, you're robbing them of morale internally, and that's definitely the playbook that he's going to pursue.
If the legacy media wanted to avoid lawsuits, the solution is simple: stick to the facts. It's not rocket science. Yet, time and time again, we see outlets blurring the lines between factual reporting and opinion, often in the name of sensationalism or pushing a narrative. And that's what happened with the ABC case, where George Stephanopoulos falsely said Trump had been found liable for R-word, repeating the word about 10 times. Accountability isn't just some new concept that we discovered last month, nor it's an unreasonable one. You see, people sue because false information can ruin reputations, careers, and even lives. A headline meant to generate clicks might do irreparable damage, and when the truth finally comes out, the damage is already done. If a media outlet wants the privilege of being taken seriously, it has to earn it by delivering credible, factual reporting. Anything less is negligence disguised as journalism.
But look, this is classic Donald Trump. He wants to get out there and talk about stuff, distract, and talk about everything else. And the other thing that drives me crazy is regular folks at home. This is the brilliance of this man that I cannot stand, is that he knows what he's doing, and people agree with him. They think because he talks about it over and over again that there's something crazy going on in the media, which I know that there's not, but he does it every day.
But you know who doesn't agree with him? Core conservatives have traditionally upheld the First Amendment in most cases where they are pressed on it. And so one of the challenges Donald Trump has faced is you might bring this to a court and you might have it stacked with conservative judges, but conservative judges tend to side with the First Amendment on these types of things.
You just said he wins either way.
Well, he wins either way. I'll tell you this. Even if he loses a case, he wins because he gets to suck the wind out of the media companies he doesn't like.
I'm never going to argue that there's not common sense Republicans. I got to sit here next to this guy almost every week. I make that. We can get to that point, but I'm just saying this is classic 101 Donald Trump.
Well, with all due respect, Chucky, my boy, after everything we've witnessed from the MSM over the past decade, if you still think there's nothing wrong with how they operate, you're either willfully ignoring reality or completely delusional. It's become extremely obvious that they are less about informing the public and more about shaping narratives that align with their agendas, from selectively reporting facts to outright ignoring stories that don't fit their preferred viewpoint. The bias is impossible to miss. We've seen headlines twisted beyond recognition, anonymous sources used by the foundation for massive accusations, and retractions buried so deep they might as well not exist. And to Sarah's point, making this a First Amendment issue's nothing but mental gymnastics. Even though the actual malice standard protects criticism, it ensures that only those who knowingly or recklessly lie about powerful people in matters of public concern are liable, which is something Scott Jennings expanded on and effectively shut down the entire panel with.
Is he trying to intimidate the media with this strategy?
I think he is well within bounds to play the game that he thinks they're playing against him, which is to lie about him, to, try to shape the narrative around him in ways that he doesn't believe are accurate. My belief is, why can't people just be precise? So look what happened to ABC. They were not precise in what they said, and you can't be so flip with this kind of serious information when we're talking about, the public affairs of our country. I mean, I've been on TV over the last several years with people who I thought were really loose with their language and how they described him. I've heard it on Pete Hegseth. I've heard it a number of times. But when it comes to Republicans, it does feel like to Republicans that imprecision and, maybe playing a little fast and loose with the edges of things is okay. And Republicans have been waiting for someone to come along and push back on just that's the way we have to do it, because we don't.
That's what it all boils down to. The MSM has turned into an outrage machine that constantly pushes misleading narratives about the right. With such a track record, it's only a matter of time before someone said enough is enough and started pushing back legally. From the Russia collusion hoax to fabrications about Trump's personal life, they've thrown everything at the wall, hoping something would stick. Now that they are held accountable, the MSM's trying to play victim. By the way, I've noticed you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel yet, so what are you waiting for? Now, we also need to be clear that the justice system isn't some one-sided arbiter of truth. Just last year, Trump lost a lawsuit he filed against CNN, with the ruling coming from a judge that he appointed back in 2019. If that's not proof of fairness, what is? The reality is actions have consequences. If you push false narratives, don't be shocked when the people you slander fight back.
Typically, if you aren't precise, which you're right, words matter. The order of processes here is that you send a cease and desist letter, you ask for a correction, you ask the network to make you good on air. If you go through those routes and you don't get your results, that's when you can get into defamation territory.
And by then, how many months have passed? I mean, these campaigns happen really fast. Here's the problem. He is bombarded. Republicans are bombarded with what they believe is unfair characterizations of whatever they have going on a minute-by-minute basis, and you want them to go through a 6-8 month period?
It's almost as if Sarah's the one who writes the legal notes for The View, and Scott is right. The problem here is that the original story gets plastered across headlines, trending hashtags, endless social media shares, the correction barely makes a ripple. Then take this hypothetical as an example. A bombshell headline generates millions of clicks and dominates the news cycle for days. Then the truth comes out and the story is found to be inaccurate. What happens is that the correction is buried at the bottom of a web page or mentioned in passing on an off-peak broadcast. By that time, the damage is done. People rarely see the follow-up, let alone absorb it. The initial narrative sticks because it's what people remember. Issuing corrections may check a box for journalistic integrity, whatever that means these days, but it doesn't undo the harm caused by their initial failure to get the facts straight.
I'm on the internet every day, Al Gore's internet, and I see all kinds of smears against Democrats being perpetrated by the new media in conservative circles. Are those folks ready to be sued?
No, that's not what's happening here. As Scott said, it's about holding major media outlets accountable in a game that they're one-sided on, and that's the way. It's not about the money for Trump. He's not doing that. You know what he probably really wanted to get to, and what ABC didn't want him to see, and what he didn't want the public to see, that was the discovery side of it, where maybe there were emails internally talking about this and saying, well, we're going to say this, or we're going to say that. That's probably the same thing with the Des Moines Register. What kind of communication was going on before that poll was released?
What about the Des Moines Register? I mean, do you really think he's going to sue over a bad poll? I mean,
It's not the poll, it's the idea that it was done, and there are people who believe that information was shared with Democrats ahead of time to help shape the narrative.
That is classic whataboutism. Abby's clearly trying to deflect by shifting blame onto what she calls the new media, which, let's be honest, is just regular people sharing opinions on social platforms. It's telling how rattled she seems by the rise of independent voices, especially when you consider that their ratings are tanking while ours are shooting to the moon. So I'd say if they wanted my advice, stick to your outdated tactics. It only speeds up the shift of who's dominating the news landscape. And I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. By the way, if you want to see how The View lost it after Trump was named the Times Person of the Year, click on this video right here. I promise you will not regret it. It's very funny. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.